So very quickly before we begin, is this on? Testing? Yeah? We're good? It's on?
Yeah, there's a button.
Now it's on. All right, that's better. First we'll get feedback. So very quickly before we begin, a thanks to all our sponsors. Obviously without them, today's impossible. Without our volunteers, I think they haven't been mentioned. Thank you to all of them as well. Without all of you, today's impossible as well. Without the attendees, and a thanks to all the other speakers that were present at today's conference. Our session today is on how to use AI to automate your business processes with Maestro. My name is Randy Kolenko. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect and Partner at Nextide. My other partner in the company, Blaine Lang, is actually in the crowd. I know we know some of you. We don't know all of you. By all means, come up, say hi, let us know what you're working on, and if Maestro, what you learn about here today, can help you in the future. We got a buzz.
Yeah,
Is it my laptop?
good.
Maybe.
Do you want to hold it?
I don't want to hold it.
Okay, yeah. All right.
We'll try that. Maybe it's just the laptop power cord.
Yeah.
Very good. So where was I? Oh yeah, I'm Randy. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach us, talk to us. You can see us at nextide.ca. That's my Drupal user account, and the module we're using today is Maestro, and you can find our project page right there. I want to take about 20 seconds, 2 minutes actually, more like it, to tell you about why I'm standing in front of you talking about business process automation. Nextide is a company. We've been around for 25 years, and 99% of that time we've been in the open source realm. We joined the Drupal community back in 2008, 2009, and we do anything and everything and anything Drupal, from elaborate websites like Smith & Anderson and Leonard. But what we're known for, and it's a bit of a departure from I think everything you've seen here today, is that we kind of push content management system to the side. We actually use Drupal as a platform, and we use Drupal as a platform to write business applications. So this presentation is going to be perhaps a little different, perhaps a bit eye-opening or expanding, right? Remember our keynote today? Think differently, right? Challenge yourselves. And so what we're seeing down here at the bottom is actually our workflow editor. It's our drag and drop interface on how to create your business processes with Maestro. Maestro is a module landed on Drupal 7 days after Drupal 7's initial release, which means it was actually already written back in 2010, I guess already that was. Wow. Its origins were actually back in 2003 when I wrote it for a .NET-based platform at that time. And it's been poked, prodded, and ported ever since, landing on Drupal 7. And so we've been at this for 15 years on Drupal alone. In that time, we have automated business processes across the planet, from World Trade Organization, NASA JPL, municipalities of Denmark. If you've ever used a Scotty's tissue, the R&D for that product went through our workflow engine. And just about every shape and size of company in every industry vertical you can imagine across this planet. And so it's been really interesting to see the little engine that I wrote in 2003 become what it is today, version 4, currently on the Drupal platform. And you notice I say platform, not CMS. So let's learn a little bit about Maestro before we actually do a live demo today. Fingers crossed. If you can flowchart it, then you can automate it with Maestro. That's been our tagline since day one. And it's pretty true. If you've ever drawn a box with an arrow to another box, with an arrow to another box, that's a process, okay? Chances are we can automate that with Maestro. And it's also likely here that everyone in this room either works for or has worked for some sort of company at some point in time. And it's likely that you were onboarded, okay? You were hired. It's also likely that you asked for vacation time, or you asked for training, or you ask somebody for a new PC or hardware or software of some sort, or you submit an expense report. Okay, these are all examples of business processes. And as an employee, there's tons of them, right? And especially different types of companies, not just technology companies, but companies that are manufacturers and such. Now just think about that business processes from the business perspective. What if you are a manufacturer? How do you manage your ISO 9001 quality management process? How do you manage your new product development where you have not just a node, okay, that you're trying to route around your site, but you have drawings, Excel documents, Word documents, emails, links to SharePoint, links everywhere else. And you have to send those documents around your organization of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people, picking the right people at the right times, involving external parties, even your manufacturing arm, in order to provide information and input into your new product development process. Well, you'd use Maestro for something like that. In fact, we have. Let's think back to that expense report process. So what do you do in an expense report process? You cobble together all your receipts, right? You take pictures of them. You provide really weak excuses why you think that thing is expensible, and you send it to your manager. That manager looks at it and can accept it or reject it. If that manager rejects it, it goes back to you as the initiator. Okay, keep that word in mind. So as the initiator of that process, you then fix it up, you send it back to your manager, and that process repeats until your manager says, great, it looks good. Then goes on to finance. Finance can accept or reject that. And again, that process goes back to the manager or back to you as the initiator. And that process repeats until finance approves it. Then it goes off to payroll. And then payroll could potentially reject it for whatever reason. It goes back to finance or your manager or you. And then that process repeats until such time payroll says it looks good and you get paid. But wouldn't it be cool that you as the employee are sitting there going, why is it taking 3.5 weeks to get my expense report? Well, that's called visibility into the process. And Maestro allows you to not only automate these processes, and automation doesn't mean removing the humans from it, but actually makes them visible, makes them more effective, and thereby increases productivity. So you're sitting there for 3 weeks and you can actually say, hey, it's stuck in finance for these variety of reasons. That's what workflow and work process automation does. So what is Maestro? It's a single module, but it really consists of 3 what I call components or parts or pillars. The first part's the orchestrator. Okay, it's called the engine or the orchestrator. We call it the orchestrator. And it's funny because the Dries note, just in Vienna, he starts using the word orchestration. Welcome to the club. We've been using this word for 25 years already, almost 25 years. So the orchestrator helps orchestrate those business process workflows that you create, and sort of faded into the background. You see a few of them here. These are our Maestro templates, okay? And that's the second part of the Maestro workflow engine, is that you create these drag and drop, with our drag and drop workflow editor, these templates that allow you to automate your business process. And the third part of the Maestro module is the user interface, called the task console. Humans, until we get completely automated out of all of our jobs, business processes require humans to interact with them. So you might be thinking to yourself, you know, I attended the ECA session here. I use ECA every day. I've automated everything I can in Drupal. You're right. You're very Drupal-centric. That's what you're supposed to do. You automate stuff with ECA when it comes to very Drupal-centric processes. That simple example of, I edit a piece of content, I hit save. Okay, there's my event. The condition could be, I don't know, it's like a article content type. Okay, and the actions are send an email, unpublish that piece of content. You would automate that with ECA. Maestro can automate that too, but you wouldn't probably use Maestro to do that. So what's the difference? Why would I use Maestro to automate anything? Well, Maestro is a business process workflow engine, and it doesn't need a Drupal event to happen in order for you to start a Maestro template, in order to start a business process automation. Maestro, is Drupal event and content agnostic. We don't have to route a node, okay? We don't have to only be focused on a node. Well, what if we need to have multiple nodes? I think it just failed. What if we had, I don't know. I don't know. It's all broken. It's all broken. Oh, look at this. I think it's working. All right, where was I? I don't know. Something about Maestro. Oh yeah. So Maestro doesn't only have to route nodes, single nodes. Like when you look at ECA and what we did with ECA in that presentation, is it works a bit low? It's a bit low. I don't know. I'll have to talk like this. Anyways, so in the ECA presentation today, we're really focused in on, say, a single user logging in, or you're really focused on a single piece of content or something that you're doing. With Maestro, we can route just about anything and as many of those things as you want. Okay, web form submissions, nodes, What about files? What if it's just a form? In fact, our longest running workflow engagement that we have right now is probably in 15 years that it's been running. They don't know what a Drupal is. They don't know what content management is. They have no idea what taxonomy terms are or Drupal fields or anything. And yet they run their entire product development process in it. My goodness, it's such a different way to think about Drupal as a platform, as a business solution, rather than just a machine that can generate content or create beautiful looking websites. It's a completely internal application. So Maestro templates that you see in the background here generally do not run all at once. So when you compare this to ECA, ECA or just a lot of the stuff you're trying to automate in Drupal, like that example I gave you of saving content and getting that email and it unpublished, you probably don't want that hanging around for weeks, right? You probably want that email to go out right away and that content to be unpublished right away. Generally, that's what you do with ECA because it runs within that same, essentially, user cycle. Not with Maestro. Maestro, some of these processes run for days, weeks, months, years, or forever. Who cares, right? It depends on what the business is up to and what their parameters are for their processes. Just like your expense report, how long do you want that process to run for? Well, if it was up to the business, they'd never pay your expenses, so maybe forever. But however, there are probably constraints and business requirements around it. So it could maybe take weeks for your expense report to be approved. One of the most important things about Maestro is that humans are involved with it, okay? So we have that concept of assignments. And so with your task console, humans get interaction with the Maestro engine to complete their tasks. And if there's something that Maestro doesn't do, it most certainly is very extensible. You can write your own kinds of tasks and such that can go inside of Maestro. And so just like everything else in Drupal, you can write your own code for it. In fact, if we have time, we'll show it. We need to learn a little bit of jargon before we actually get into showing you what Maestro does. That A to B to C, the diagram that you're drawing, is called a Maestro template. And inside of those templates are tasks. Those tasks are what you assign to the Maestro engine to run, or assign to humans to run. We also have this concept of template variables. These template variables, you can have any number of variables that provide context inside of your workflow. Those template variables can hold anything. They can hold strings of text, they can hold IDs, they can hold usernames, they can hold URLs. It depends on what you are doing and what you're trying to automate. And then we, as I already mentioned, we have this concept of assignments. You can assign tasks to humans, you can assign them by discrete usernames, you can assign it to multiple people, you can assign it to roles of people, or you can dynamically assign tasks to people via your template variables. So think about that expense report example again. You work in a company of 2,000 people. What are the chances only a single expense report is floating around your company at any given time? Probably zero, right? There's probably, 20, 30, 50 different people at any given time in a company of a relatively large size putting in an expense report, okay? Well, when you as the initiator of that expense report process start filling in your expense form, you've now started what's called a Maestro process. So those templates become a process. And those tasks that are inside of the template that are executing get put into the Maestro queue. Okay, so the Maestro queue is what the engine is running on. Those template variables become process variables. So you can imagine those 50 expense reports, 50 different people submitted those expense reports. That's 50 different initiators. So already we've got 50 unique values inside of your template variables, all managed by Maestro. Those assignments become production assignments. So again, the template gives you the structure of who this could potentially be assigned to, but in the real world, production assignments means that if I'm assigning a task to a variable, I might have to look that manager up in some other system and then assign that task to that person. So tasks can be assigned dynamically to people. And so once you get a production assignment, it's either executed by the engine or it's executed by the user interface, the actual task console that we give people. So this is what we're automating. We're automating your expense report. Isn't that exciting? This is going to be the most exciting demo. No, not really, but it's going to show off really a very simple process that we all understand. And this is what we're going to be automating. We're going to be the initiator and start an expense report. We're going to let AI validate this. This is not something you should put into production, okay? This is a demo. This has got very few guardrails, if any, okay? This is just trying to show off how you can use AI to start to offload the mundane tasks that humans do in their day-to-day workflow processes. If AI deems your expense report invalid, it's going to go back to the initiator for correction. You are given the opportunity to correct it and it gets sent back for AI validation. That loop can continue forever and a day. We're not going to do that today, okay? We'll demo it accordingly. And if AI then passes your expense report's valid or validated, it goes off for human financial approval. Okay? Generally speaking, any processes that we've automated, if they contain AI, still need human guardrails. Okay? It is unlikely that you're going to offload everything to AI for validation unless you trust it enough, unless we've done enough groundwork in order for you to really trust your AI validation. If finance rejects it, it can go back to the initiator for, again, review. And each one of these loops, so what you should be seeing are two separate loops that can happen here. If finance approves it, we're all good to go. All right, let's get on with this live demo. Wish me luck. All right, so I'm just going to refresh this just to make sure it's like running. Oh, come on now. I'm going to quickly show you, there we go, it's alive. For Maestro as a module, it's very modular, if you want to look at it that way. I've pretty much got everything installed on it. I'm just going to, if you're playing along with a home game later on, because it's going to be exciting Friday night, you should run this at home. For now, we've got the AI task, and this example's in our AI task vision example module as well. This will come out of experimental shortly, just because the AI module is getting so much better now. Okay, so everything's starting to solidify in the AI space, and so as a result, this starts to come out of being experimental. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to show you how to set up AI in this. I don't have enough time, but we're going to be using OpenAI today. I've got a local Gemini instance, Gemma 3.4b, running on my laptop. I'm just not going to use it right now. But you need keys, right, in order to talk to OpenAI. That means money. Okay, so I'm not going to kid you that this is free or anything, but I think this demo will probably cost, what like maybe 2 cents, 3 cents maybe at tops to run this demo. Once you set up your AI, you need to also set up the default providers. I've scrolled down the page here, and the one we're going to be using in particular today is Chat with Image Vision. It's kind of cool to be able to upload an expense receipt and talk to it, right? And so that requires us to be able to use the Chat with Image Vision operation type with our AI module. So Maestro is now just, as a workflow engine, can now interface with the AI module settings. So we need an expense report. This is it. Not terribly exciting, but it is a web form. And the only two fields we really care about for this demo is going to be receipt upload and receipt description. The other two fields are just decoration, but you need something for an expense report. And so we got 4 fields: date, receipt upload, or we're actually going to be attaching a receipt, the description, and a total. The way this thing is built is with these fields here, and I've highlighted one field, a rejection reason. You don't see it on the actual output. If I go back here, you don't see rejection reason. It's because rejection reason has a visibility constraint on it that it only shows when there's content inside of it. Well, that's silly. How am I going to see it? How is everybody going to fill it in if you can't? Yeah, we're going to fill that in with Maestro. We'll see. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if in the event our expense report is rejected, we're going to get Maestro to fill that field back in for us and tell us why AI has rejected this receipt. One more thing in this web form, we've got an we've got a handler, not an email handler. This is how we integrate with web form. It's called the Spawn Maestro Workflow Handler, and I've highlighted that we're going to be spawning the Maestro AI Expense Receipt Checking Simple Example. A bit of a mouthful, but it's a simple example. We also ship the AI module examples with a complex example, and I'll just show you that workflow pattern later. And once it is successfully spawned, it'll tell us, submitted your expense report to finance. These are all customizable and such. We also get a task console. I'm just logged in as admin, but I'll get a task console. You'll get a task console. Like you'll get everybody gets a task console. Isn't that exciting? This is where your tasks will show up in the event you get something assigned to you. So in any environment, again, you don't have to use our out-of-the-box task console. You can use views to create your own task console. You can customize this in any which way you want. What this is going to show us is anything that we're assigned that we have to execute. We also then have our template editor. Let me just go back up to the top here and go to template builder. Our template builder, you can have any number of templates inside of, get out of there, any number of templates inside of your system. I've just got a bunch here. The ones installed with the AI example module are these two. I've just got one down at the bottom called SWO example. And so this is our template editor. And so it is a, wherever the tasks went, let me see if I zoom out. Uh-oh. Hello. Oh, it's really zoomed out. It's not even that. Hold on. There they are. Let me fix this. I must have been zooming. There we go. It's a good demo, isn't it? It's a drag and drop interface. I can zoom in and out. So you need the zoom in and out functionality because templates can get enormous. They can get really large. There are really complex business process flows out there. Unfortunately, a lot of the processes that we do are for internal companies, so I can't share them with you, sadly. But just picture in your mind something much more complex than these three tasks. But what you're able to do, let me zoom this back in to something more human legible. As you can see, you can drag and drop them. If I refresh this page, Maestro template editor remembers where you are, your positioning. So if you're working in an area, it'll auto save it. All of this great stuff. Let me zoom that back in. Not that way, not my screen. I want this zoomed in, thank you. You can then start drawing lines between each task. I can edit the tasks. I can then, say delete this task. All of this, all built in with Maestro. This is how you start building your templates. The template we're going to be using here today is this one. As you see, we start with a start task and we'll always end with an end task. And this is the process translated from this. This is what a human will generate and say, this is what we want to automate. This is generally what we'll get from the business, whatever business we're working with. And it'll translate into something like this. So let me take you through this very quickly. Any of the tasks you see here in the left taskbar, in fact, let me just, so it's not confusing, these are all the tasks that are available to us in our system. Okay? If you don't, say, have the ECA module installed for Maestro, we have an ECA connector. That task won't show up. Okay? If you don't have the AI task installed, the AI task won't show up. If you don't have the web form integration module installed, you won't see web form. So your installation might look a bit different until you enable things. But these tasks are task types available to us in Maestro. Anything that has this purpley blue color, okay, these ones right here, are human executable or what we call interactive tasks. They require human input. You should all be clapping now because that's people's jobs, right? So that's exciting. Yes, thank you. One clap. So those are human interaction tasks. Those are the tasks that you actually can assign to humans. Everything else is run by the Maestro engine. Okay? The ones in gold are more of logical type tasks. The AND task will wait for any and all pointers to it to complete. And then it will carry on. It's kind of like a wait task. The OR task will allow any number of pointers to it, and it will continue if any of those pointers complete. The if task does what you think it does. If I go back to this template here, here's an if task here. You'll see a red line coming out of it down, come on, where's my mouse? Down here. That's the false branch. The black arrow is the true branch. So those of us who code in here know your if, else. That's essentially it here. This is an if statement. If something is true, you follow the black line. If something is false, you follow the red line. This is how you can do loops. And the gray tasks are engine tasks, such as there's really not much to do other than, say, run a batch function, which is actually what we're going to do here. So batch functions allow you to write your own code, talk to some other systems, pull stuff back into your workflow process. They're really intrinsic to most workflow processes. And finally, up in the top corner here, we have our AI task, the baby blue one. Okay, this is the thing that's actually going to spawn and launch our AI task. These tasks up here are orangey yellow or gold color, and they are our set process variable tasks. These tasks allow you to set those variables I was mentioning previously with data from, I know, an entity, as a counter, whatever it is you need to do. What we're doing in this workflow example is when we launch this workflow, via submitting this expense report, this handler fires. What we will do is this template will start, that Maestro will fill in who the initiator is, and we'll look at that in a second. It'll also attach that web form submission to this workflow as context. What we're able to do with these set process variable tasks is pick values out of that web form without writing any code and set those variables so that we can use them inside of our workflow for either decision making in if tasks, or what we're going to see is we're going to plug them into the AI task itself. So what we do is we have to set a few variables to create that context. Now I'm just going to edit this template very briefly and show you what variables look like. These are our template variables. One of the most important variables that we have here, and it's grayed out because you cannot delete it, is the initiator variable. The initiator variable, if possible, will be set to the person or the username of the individual who started the workflow. This is an important task because many a time, workflows loop back to the initiator. That expense report example is a great, well, we're going to do one too today actually, that will loop back to the individual who started it in the event that there's an issue. We've got a few variables that deal with visibility. We're not going to touch them today, just pretend they work. And we got really good documentation actually on our Drupal.org project site that can help you with all this as well. The three other variables, so we're really dealing with four variables. The three other variables that we really care about is the image file. So when we go back to our form, that's not that, that's this thing, our receipt upload. Okay? We're going to stuff this variable with that image file, well, a reference to it. We also need the receipt description because we want AI to be checking this receipt. So we also not only need the receipt, but we need the description. Okay, so we're going to pull the value of the description, this field, and pop that into a variable as well. And then we also have message. Message is the AI return message. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is watching, well, four variables. Initiator to make sure that it's set to us, or me. The AI message is cleared out and or set in the event that there's an error. The receipt description being set to the receipt description that we've typed into the web form, and that the image file is actually being set. All right? So cross your fingers. Hopefully this works. It should. And so the way this works is we set the conditions up for AI to be successful. And where the magic happens with respect to offloading business processes to AI is in the AI task itself. Ignoring a bit of the minutia with respect to setting up visibility and all this great stuff with Maestro, is we're going to look at the providers that are available. Out of the box right now, most people are going to be doing something like a speech to text or talking with a chatbot, asking it questions and trying to get return results. We can do moderation to test what's going on with certain pieces of content even. Text to image, so if you want to tell it to generate an image, it can. We can save it either as a base 64 image and store it in our large blob array that we can store in the database, or dump it to a file. The one we care about, because again, this is a demo, we want to talk to an image with our descriptions and tell it what we should be looking for. And so when I choose the manage the chat with image vision operation type, it gives me some options. I don't have to code any of this stuff. Okay, this is all built in. I can tell it where that image is coming from. Can it come from a URL? Absolutely. It can come from our AI entity. Okay, so if we're passing this information around and it's an image that's been pre-generated, we can stuff that into an entity. We're using a process variable in this case, and we're looking at the image file process variable. It lets you choose whichever process variable you want to look at for the image source. Or a local file if you're doing something that's on your hard drive already or on the system's hard drive, you can point it there. And then we get into the prompt. So this is what we're telling the AI task to do. We're telling it that it's a finance employee tasked with reviewing expense report receipts. Each receipt may have an attached employee explanation, which might be missing, irrelevant, or applicable to a different receipt. Okay, so again, how many times have people submitted an expense report and it's garbage, right? I'm sure managers must lose their minds daily reading this stuff going, why are you expensing this? My goodness, okay? Anyways, we don't have all of those guardrails in there, but what we do have are really two rules, okay? The first rule is if alcohol is found on the receipt, return a brief explanation containing the word alcohol. If the explanation mentions managerial approval, client hospitality, or customer appreciation, do not flag it for alcohol. If the receipt appears invalid, such as I created it on a napkin, okay, return a brief explanation containing the word invalid. If no issues are found, return a single dash. Okay, so what we should all understand here is if AI validates our receipt, if AI validates our receipt, where's my plug?
Oh, you're back.
Oh, I'm back. Where'd it go? I'm not plugged in. Where'd it go?
That's back.
It fell off. I think my plug fell off. Do we have that somewhere? Anywhere? Hold on, folks. Hang on.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. I've been disconnected yet again. Hold on.
All this time.
All this time. Look at that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, so what we have to keep in mind is that when AI is evaluating a receipt, we're going to get one of three things, okay, based on this very simple example. It's either going to be a dash, meaning that it's clear, not applicable, whatever, it's clean. Otherwise, it'll say invalid if it detects that it's a junky receipt for some reason, or it's going to give us an explanation of why there's alcohol on it, okay? And here's where a bit of the power in this comes in. We're able to use tokens inside of this. In fact, with Maestro, we've got a pile of tokens that we've written. Unbelievable. Under Maestro here, you'll just see them. I'm not going to go through them all, but suffice to say we can render entities. We can do just about anything you need, one of which is rendering our process variables. So I can stuff in the very dynamic receipt description into this prompt, and off it goes. Those astutely watching or thinking in this crowd of, well, what if I have an employee handbook that has all this information like this? Hey, you know what we can do? We can actually do a RAG search. And I've got a working example of this as well. You might have noticed I've got a Milvis database running in here. I've got a vector database where we can do these kinds of lookups, stuff an entity and poke it in here. Not a problem. We can do all this stuff to provide the appropriate AI guardrails to these business processes. And so what should happen here is this prompt will get sent with our description, and AI should evaluate it for us, freeing your manager from looking at the looking at your lunch receipt, okay, and approving it appropriately. A little bit more magic that happens here. We give you a number of options in what you can do with the return information from AI. In this case, I'm going to set a process variable called message. So that's our fourth variable that we're actually using. In the event AI executes properly, this if task will detect if message is not equal to a dash. That means it's been filled in. There's something wrong with it. So that's the true branch. It's going to follow the true branch. We're then going to use our batch function to use the web form API to write the value back into it. We then present it back to the initiator for fixing, and this process continues forever. Not for this demo, it's going to happen once. And then we're going to get to human finance approval in the event the receipt has no issues, if AI is working properly. And then back to this if task, if finance is rejected, then this process continues over and over and over, otherwise it ends. So that's how we turn this into something Maestro or any other workflow engine, quite frankly, that you work with, to something that it can automate. The receipt we're going to be sending today is this. It's really legitimate. It is highly legit. I made it in Word, okay? Some made-up restaurant, we had grilled salmon. It was delicious. And a poutine with smoked meat. Oh my goodness. But we had wine and craft beer. What do you think is going to happen? You don't just keep it in your mind. What do you think should happen in this example? If this was a human looking at this receipt, you'd probably look at it and go, there's booze on it. It's out of here. Send it back. Okay. A human would also look up some made-up restaurant in Toronto, okay, and look at the date, and it's wildly out of date, and probably reject it as well. We obviously haven't given those guardrails. We obviously haven't done yet another RAG search or something on the image itself to make sure that actually exists, say, on Google Maps. That would be a good thing to do, wouldn't it? Okay, so there's many other things that you really should do. Don't put this in production is what I'm trying to tell you, okay? A lot of people use Maestro, the user examples, and go, hey, it's broken. Doesn't do everything we want it to. Well, yeah, I know, it's a demo, right? So anyways, shall we? Shall we, submit an expense report? Sure, let's attach it. And let's tell them that the lunch was yummy. All right, and we don't care about the expense total. We're not doing any expense aggregation. All right, so we see a status message saying you're submitted your report to finance. So we know it's been successfully submitted. So what should happen right now is that we've submitted a web form. We've used our handler. It should have launched this workflow process. We should have also attached that we are the initiator, and we should get that web form as context. What we give you inside of Maestro is a bunch of tools right out of the box. We've got a whole pile of views, and you can create your own views, and most people do. This is called all active workflow tasks. This is a great way just to check out what's going on inside the engine. So keep in mind, this is now the Maestro queue. This is now this workflow process with the start task injected into the queue. Well, this is a great interface, but in a really busy workflow environment, like one of our busiest, there's like zillions of pages of tasks that are running at any given time, either by the engine or by humans. Mostly it's humans not doing their work, okay? But the likelihood is that you're not going to see one task, okay? This is just a demo. So a pretty busy view. We also have this capability to trace, and this is what we're going to look at here today. At the top, you see tasks that are in progress. We see the start task is active. It hasn't been archived yet. So the way this works is that in the event a human executes something, your status goes from active to completed, okay? If the engine is executing something, it'll execute it and it'll change its status from active to executed or whatever status we currently have. Archived means that the engine has finally run over it and it has detected that it has properly completed and then created the next logical task based on the template. So we have a number of statuses and such that's going on. And underneath that, we have the process variables. So we see the initiator and it is set magically to admin. Ta-da. Okay, step one of 4 variables has been set appropriately. Our task now is to watch to make sure these bottom 3, image file, receipt description, and message, get set automatically by our workflow engine. And down here is our entity identifiers. We just call them that because, again, they can be any type of entity. They come with a unique identifier, and we can use those identifiers inside of our prompts, inside of our tokens, inside of other tasks in order to look inside of that entity and pull values out or route that entity or display that entity as we see fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to run our orchestrator manually. You do not do this in production, right? What we do is we provide you, much like cron, an endpoint that you call. And you call that every 30 seconds, every minute, every 10 minutes, however long you need in order to run your business processes effectively. But what happens is the orchestrator will run and try to complete as many tasks as it can and advance each workflow by 1 step every time. This is not a hospital grade like heart-lung machine, okay folks? This is not meant to run nuclear submarines. You can now imagine that if you run your orchestrator every 5 minutes between execution times, that it'll probably be about 5 minutes between the next task showing up. So if you're sitting beside somebody and you complete your task and you're looking over at their screen going, how come it didn't appear in their task console? It's because the orchestrator hasn't run yet. It'll run. Give it some time. So these are business processes that, again, don't expect to be completed in seconds. There's humans involved. Therefore, there are definitely time lag delays, especially in large systems where you could have thousands of tasks in the orchestrator running at any given time. It takes time. So I'm going to crank this engine once, twice, 3, 4 times. Oh, it's exciting. What happened here? We had the start task. So it should have completed the start, then created the set image file. Should have completed that one, cleared the AA message. Should have completed that one, and then set the receipt description. So let's look at our trace and see what's going on inside this engine. All right, we've successfully completed start. Without lifting a finger, the orchestrator did it all by itself. It set the image file all by itself. It cleared the AA message and set the description all by itself. And now we're waiting with bated breath for the AI task to run. We're going to run this as well in a second. There's our admin filled in. We also have the process variable for the image file. It is a managed file, so it has a file ID, so that's what's returned to us. That's cool. There's our incredibly descriptive description. And here's our message so far. It's null, it's blank, it's ready to go. So what we're going to do now is, as I've already showed you, that AI task will run. Let me run it by cranking over the orchestrator. Okay, this is exciting, folks. Doesn't get more exciting watching this little thing run here. Come on. Oh, it's finished. Okay. In your minds, or shout it out, I don't care, whichever one you want. What do you think will happen with this variable? What do you think we should get back from AI? I don't know. Have you ever seen ChatGPT say, "Oh, you're right"? Wow. Okay. We see that finance AI check receipt has successfully completed. Live demos are awesome. I don't know why anybody doesn't do it. And it says alcohol found on receipt. We have offloaded this from your manager. You have saved her 20 minutes at the very least, not only grabbing their forehead going, this is the 15th receipt this week from this person. Okay? Alcohol's found in this receipt. So what does that mean, folks? What does that mean? That the message is not a dash. So when we look at this if task that's about to run, it says, if the message is not a dash, simply put, it's going to run this way, and then eventually go back to our task. So I'm going to go back to my task console and just give this a bit of a refresh here. And voila, I as the initiator get a task back to me in my task console that says there's an issue with your receipt, of course. So let me execute this. And by the way, I haven't skin themed or done any of this. This is 100% out of the box. This is my web form submission sent back to me. And what do we see? The rejection reason. Alcohol found on your receipt. Huh. Well, that sucks. Okay, fine. My manager said this was okay for, I don't know, what was one of her keywords? Customer appreciation. Okay, as an employee, I probably wouldn't know this. And quite frankly, if you're submitting expense reports like this, you probably want some human leeway. Maybe your manager did say, of course, just expense that, and it will never pass AI validation. Okay, so you don't want to be gaming systems, but this is why you don't put this kind of process into production. You probably want a way to get around AI or provide loops or something around this kind of scenario. Let me save that. It's now gone from my task console, and if we look at the trace of what's going on inside the engine, we've now successfully completed, admin has completed it, and by the way, did you notice there's timestamps? We also store what time the task was created, the time it was completed. You want to run KPIs in your business and understand how actually productive you're being? Companies use this all the time. My goodness, they use this all the time saying, why is it taking this process 4 months to complete? It should be 3 or whatever it is, okay? So there's annoying ways that your boss can keep track of how busy or not busy you are. So what we've done now is, or pardon me, what we're about to do now is run through these first 3 tasks again. So let's do that. Let's run our orchestrator once, twice, 3 times. Don't say the song. All right. So we are now up to our AI checking our receipt again. And look what's happened to our variables. Still the same image file because I didn't upload a new one. I could have actually uploaded a proper new image, but my manager said this is okay for an appreciation lunch, and the message has now been blanked out. So now let's run the AI task. Just by cranking over the engine. Oh, we're watching that thing go back and forth. Oh, it's done. Okay. What do you think is going to happen? It's a dash. It's still a dash. That means AI passed its validation. You've now saved your manager the extra 20 minutes, okay, of looking at this. So what will happen is that because the if task says, is the message not equal to a dash? Well, it is equal to a dash. Therefore, we're going to follow the false branch. So what should happen here is when I refresh my task console, I'm one of those lucky people who work in finance and also submit my own expense reports. So I get the task again. This is just a demo. Don't put this in production. So finance human review. I'm going to execute this. And again, this is 100% out of the box. Like I didn't theme this. I didn't do anything. This is now the same web form task in Maestro presented to you differently. I'm not showing you the edit. I'm now showing you the display of it. Okay? These are all just checkboxes inside of Maestro that allow you to configure these tasks this way. There's our rather fake receipt. There's our reasoning behind why we think we should expense it. We've left the rejection reason in here so that the finance people know that this person put booze on their receipt and tried to game the system. I can either accept this or reject it. How many people want to sit here till 9 o'clock tonight just testing this thing? No, not really fun. I will accept it. So what's going to happen in here is because I've accepted this, this if task can also be configured to say, was the last task status? Was it successful or was it canceled? In our case, we're testing if it's canceled. Canceled would be the true. It was canceled, but I did not cancel it, right? I did not reject it. I accepted it. So what should happen when we look at our trace again is that we're at the if task. If I run the orchestrator, we should see the end task. There's the end task. We've now completed the expense report. That is how you automate business processes. So very quickly, if I go back to my template builder, like these are just examples of other workflows. Like they get more and more complex, right? The template for the complex example, if you're playing the home game tonight, which you will, because I know you're interested, this is how you can do multiple receipt checkings. The web form for the complex example actually allows you to upload multiple receipts with multiple descriptions. And AI, as you see running down here, we just set up the conditions and use a very simple loop. So that, again, I've written no code for this except to set the expense up here in the top corner. The receipt reason why it's been rejected, if rejected at all, and it'll target the appropriate receipt that you've uploaded. So really simple. And I wrote 20 lines of code. You want to see the code that I wrote for this? Here it is. That's it. Let me zoom that in. I think I can zoom that in. That's it. So we provide a really elaborate, easy to use API for this, where we can offload stuff to code. Okay, and so I'm using most of this is actually just the web form API, right? And I'm pulling values out of our Maestro engine, which we have a really elaborate, really good API for the Maestro engine as well. And we stuff the values into the web form. So that, folks, is how you start to automate business processes. So now imagine at your job or any of your clients' jobs or workplaces, how many processes they have. Think of the ROM. How many processes they probably have that could be automated. Maybe I should go talk to Perry. But anyways, very quickly, if I go back just to show folks, because I think we got a little bit of time, a little tiny bit of time. We started a touch late. So example here with the issue with the receipt. When we set this, we say the unique identifier of the web form we're showing is submission, because when we go back to the trace, the unique identifier is called submission. So that means I can route 20 different, 40, make up the number, different web forms and present those back to people dynamically without writing a stitch of code, okay? I can show the edit form, so that's how I can show the edit to the initiator and not to the approver. I will skip any submission handlers. Those are who are in the ECA talk today. Again, you don't want circular loops and loops and loops of this thing launching itself over and over and over again. And what we can do is assignments. In this case, we've assigned to a user by a variable to the initiator. That initiator variable can hold anything, any username, but we also can do notifications. And so we can do assignment notifications, reminder notifications, so if it hasn't been done in, say, 2 days, send an email. And escalations are important. Okay, so that's how, again, your expense report's stuck in finance for 3 weeks. It's because Mary's on vacation. That should not stop your expense report from being fulfilled, right? So you can send escalations, and then people who are workflow administrators can actually reassign tasks as well inside of Maestro. It's a complete solution for you to automate business processes. So with that, folks, I think that uses all of my time. I don't know if we got a lot of time for Q&A, but maybe we can take 1 or 2 because we did start a minute or 2 late. Find us at Nextide. That's our project. We've also got a demo site called maestroinsurance.ca. It just runs Maestro, and you can get yourself a quote for insurance. We accept checks, especially when you get the $1 million quote at the end, because that's what it is. It's a $1 million quote. You can send it right to us. We'll accept it. And by all means, let us know if you use Maestro in the future. And again, thanks to everyone who sponsored today's sessions. With that, thanks everyone. Any questions real quick? Yes, no?
At the beginning you were mentioning yeah, we're using Drupal, but we're not really using it as a CMS. And I was wondering, since you're not really using Drupal as a CMS, how have you run into a lot of instances where you've ended up fighting Drupal and the assumptions that Drupal has been built off of in order to implement what you're doing?
Yeah, sort of, kind of. When you go in it knowing what Drupal is as a CMS, like take that web form example, most, I'm just trying to think this on the fly here, just about all workflows that we use are web form based probably that require human input because nobody cares about content management, right? So the web form is the mechanism. We also have just take an example of if you got to start a process on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. and it's just a form with some information, you just write your own form, right? So one of our task types is an interactive function, and you can just use the form API to create a form. And I mean, that kind of stuff too is just I just need approval on something, yes or no. And so a lot of the time, we're not even using, as I said, that content management piece. It's just the fact that Drupal as a platform allows you to have all these different entity types, from custom entities like we create for Maestro, as well as web form. So yeah, we don't really bump into Drupalisms too much. It's because, again, it's just abstracted from the end users. They don't even know. They don't even know. So yeah, good question. Andrew.
So I imagine companies might actually have processes around updating their processes. Hey, you can't just change our expense policy.
Right.
So can you use Maestro workflows to manage
Maestro workflows? Yeah, it's like PHP, right? PHP stands for PHP. Yeah, I suppose, again, you'd kick off some sort of review process, right, at that level. So again, it's no different than, say, a content review process. So you need something that's timed. Yeah, I suppose the answer is yes to that. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I think that's it. Thanks, folks.